So if unions aren't related to long-run unemployment, what about unemployment benefits? So we also saw that higher unemployment benefits lead to a lower incentive to work hard, shifting our best response curve, and that can affect the wage setting curve. So this graph looks at the gross unemployment benefit replacement rate. So the idea of how much money you get back in unemployment benefits compared to your income versus the long run unemployment rate on the vertical axis. And we can see that again, there seems to be very little relationship. If anything, there seems to be a downward relationship where countries that have a higher replacement rate, like Denmark and Norway, have a lower long run unemployment rate. So you have countries like Slovakia and Poland up here, but then you also have a lot of countries in the middle. So there clearly isn't a strong relationship between the two variables. So it is possible to have, an economy like Norway's and Denmark's or the Netherlands that give generous unemployment benefits, but that doesn't lead to higher unemployment rates in the long run. One of the interesting things that we have to think about is the sort of changing nature of work, meaning that, for most of human history, most people worked in agriculture. And as manufacturing increased, the amount of people that were working in agriculture declined, and the amount of people working in manufacturing increased. And so this is what this is, the industry share of total employment, basically how many people are working in producing goods rather than food or services. And you can see for the United States and the UK, that number peaked around 1950 and then started to decline. And since about 1970 has declined pretty quickly. It increased in Japan until about 1970 and now has been decreasing pretty quickly in Japan, whereas it's increasing in countries like China, but probably won't increase forever. And so why is that? Well, we're going to look at a graph in a minute, but basically, you can think of most of the technological growth coming in manufacturing. So being able to produce more stuff with fewer people, using more capital, more technology. And that shifts our feasible frontier. And so we can assume, at least for the model, if not it's completely true in real life, that service productivity remains the same. And so if consumption patterns don't change, if we consume the same amount of manufactured goods and services, then we will be at point B, which you'll see in just a minute, um, and that will shift where people work. So here's our model. So we have quantity of goods and the quantity of services. So goods are on the horizontal axis, services are on the vertical axis, and here's our feasible frontier. And we're just labeling them one for no particular reason, right? Now, here we are at point A. This is where we consume. We consume half in goods and half in services. Now, if we get an increase in productive technology in goods so that now we can produce more goods than services, that shifts out our feasible frontier. We can now increase our production of goods. And if we consume still uh, an equal amount of goods and services, then we will be here at point B. But more people will be working in services than in goods because of the increase in uh, productivity. So is this a reasonable model? Well, yes and no. It's probably what's going on, but we have a number of offsetting things, right? So productivity can increase in services, so the services line can move up. We can substitute goods for services, right? So we might decide to consume more goods than we did before, or we might decide to consume more services, right? So we might say, oh, well, I only need one refrigerator, but since it's cheaper, now I can go out to dinner more. I can go get a massage or whatever. Um, and also those import and export patterns are going to matter, right? So a lot of our goods are produced in China, and so that's going to affect things as well.